Hear ye, hear ye. I'm Dave Nelson, and on this 10th day of July 2014, I call to order this 16th meeting of the Sci-Fi Geeks Club. Let's commence with the roll call. Matt Stein, are you here?
Yes, Dad.
Your question this week is, what fictional sci-fi world would you like to see have a soccer team compete in the next World Cup?
Either Terminators or Predators.
Nice.
That's a funny...
Survivalist soccer.
That'll teach them to flop.
Yes.
Now, okay, if they competed against each other, who do you think would win?
Predators.
Okay. Why?
They have stealth. Yeah.
That's true.
Totally, yeah, exactly. All right, so continuing on with the roll call, Brad Ludwig, are you here?
Present and accounted for.
Okay, if you could create your own comic book superhero, what would their name be and their main power ability?
The name would be Compass, and the main power would be teleportation.
That is correct. Good job.
That is
All right.
correct. I won the subjective award of something. Yay!
You were on the fence for a while, but you brought it back in. All right. Vanessa Moyens, are you present?
Yes.
Okay. Your question this week is, what sci-fi short story have you read that you can most relate to?
I'm
Don't.
gonna.
Okay, go ahead.
Don't say what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say They're Made of Meat by Terry Bison. And basically it's about a couple of aliens that talk about humans and how it's ridiculous that we're sentient meat. And I could totally relate.
Why?
Because we're like this mass of muscle and tissue, and yet we have like a consciousness, and you don't really think of that. I guess from maybe an outside perspective looking in, that's something that might not be expected. They might expect something more artificially made, like robotic, I guess, to have intelligence, and yet we're able to do all sorts of amazing things, and that's obviously something that we can relate to because we're meat and we can do awesome stuff.
The meat is the best.
It's a little ridiculous.
All right, so we would like to welcome our guest this week. He's the author of the award-winning Molly Fide saga and the New York Times and USA Today best-selling Wool series. The Wool Omnibus won the Kindle Book Review's 2012 Indie Book of the Year Award. It's been up as high as #1 in the Kindle store. He began self-publishing it, the Wool series, on Amazon, but eventually struck a deal with Simon & Schuster, and they distributed the actual book. What do you call that? The actual paper book version?
You mean the doorstop? The omnibus?
The doorstop.
That's the correct term for that, I believe. His other books he's written include Halfway Home, which sounds fascinating to me, and iZombie. Let's give a warm welcome to the Sci-Fi Geeks Club author Hugh Howey.
Woo!
And Hugh, you deserve some fanfare, so here you go. Where's your
That's my fanfare. Thanks.
That's our guest fanfare, yes.
That's all we can afford.
So welcome.
The trumpets require a crown.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I love all the effect stuff. So I'm just gonna be playing with that the whole time.
That's fine. I think we all take turns doing that for each show.
So
Yeah.
you've got a question as well, and your question is the following, if I can find it. If you could be a character in any book, yours included, who would it be and why?
I can't remember the guy's name, but the book is the Ship of 1,000 Years, and the main character is this guy. If you haven't read the book, I think it's Paul Anderson who wrote it. It's one of the best science fiction books ever. Doesn't get nearly enough credit, but so there's just a random mutation, a number of people who only age to a certain point and then stop aging. Their body regenerates, and as long as they don't have a really horrible injury, they live forever. And they start finding each other. One of these guys realizes that there's more than it's not just himself, and he starts finding other people that have this, and they the book goes from like ancient times to medieval times to modern times, all the way to when we start sending these people out to colonize another star. But I love the idea of this person getting to not be a vampire, but still have a lot of the advantages of seeing so many different periods in history.
And he doesn't have to cut people's heads off to stay an immortal, right?
No, no, he does that, but it's optional.
Okay,
It's optional.
No, the book is The Boat of a Million Years.
The boat of a million years. Thank you very much.
Yep. Just for the people that are listening, they can
Is that
find
Paul
that.
Anderson who wrote that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Great book.
all right. Again, correct answer, Mr. Hop.
Woohoo! You won.
Well, thanks again for coming on the show. We are honored to have you. I believe that you are our first New York Times bestselling author to be a guest on our show. So thank you for being the first. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Before we get into the actual show, do you want to talk about your career a little bit and how you got started, like briefly, how you got started as a writer and how you got into self-publishing?
Yeah, it started about. I'm up here visiting my mom in the mountains of North Carolina. It started about 30 minutes from here. I was living with my wife and had gotten out of working as a yacht captain and I'd always wanted to write. So I started a book one day and actually finished it after 20 years of futility of trying to write a book and never getting past the first couple of chapters. Published it with a small press. Was surprised anybody picked it up and paid me money for it. Watching them publish it, I saw what was involved and figured out I could do this myself. So I started self-publishing my books. Never had any ambition of doing it as a career. I just did it because I loved it, and I got to show my mom the print-on-demand book and say, "Look, I'm an author," and slowly built a readership. I was writing about 2 novels a year and around a day job of working in a bookstore. And my 8th published work, Wool, was a little short novelette. And it just took off on Amazon and allowed me to quit my day job and concentrate on writing. And so I wrote my first word of my first novel that I completed about 5 years ago. So it's all happened rapidly, but it was like every single day for 5 years of writing, hours a day. So a lot of hard work, but it still feels like it happened at a flash.
And you're a big proponent of self-publishing, as you said. Would you encourage like young authors to do it that way, or would you recommend them go through some kind of publisher?
I think everyone should start their careers with self-publishing. I think it used to be that you could kill your career by self-publishing, and now the opposite's true. Now you can really kill your career by going with a traditional publisher prematurely. If your book doesn't do well, you're going to have to write under a pen name to give it another shot somewhere else, because they look at their balance sheets, and if they take a chance on you and it doesn't work out, and that's what happens most times, you're not going to get many more chances. It's not like it used to be where they nurture the writers that they believe in. Now that self-publishing is not something that closes you off to any deal in the future, it's the way to get started. It's like being a musician. You work your way up, and you build an audience and you hone your craft, and you do it by completing your work, not by wrestling one manuscript for years and spending years trying to get an agent, years trying to get a publishing deal, and watching it take a year for the book to come out. That process is so antiquated, just doesn't make sense. And I predicted years ago, before it happened to me even, that the future of publishing would be to get your work out there directly to the reader, and then let agents and publishers come to you. And at the time I suggested that, the idea was it was insane. I was ridiculed for it. And now it's happening to dozens of people close to me have had this happen to them. And so I just think it's a saner way of going about this and spending all of your time trying to appeal to one tastemaker in one office out of one slush pile, and hoping you you strike it that way.
And the internet, the great equalizer of things. It's happened in publishing. It's happened in other media areas as well. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
it levels the playing field on a lot of things.
And before we go to the read the minutes bit, one question that kind of relates to that, Angela Kavanaugh is asking, do you think that publishing in Kindle Worlds is a good way for a new author to get started, or is there another?
I think it's a supplemental way. I mean, I've published a story in Kindle Worlds. I think my goal is to try a little of everything, just to learn about it and for the joy. I mean, a Kindle Worlds story, someone should be able to write that on the side in a few months while they're doing other things. These don't have to be very long. It can be 20,000 words. They can be very inexpensive. I know a couple of authors who have increased the readership of their other books by writing in the Silo Saga Kindle World. So and a couple of these guys have gone from really barely squeezing by to having full-time writing careers. And I credit their writing, but they constantly email me and thank me for the opportunity to write in my world, because they credit really my promoting my readers enjoying their work. And I just don't see writers as competition to one another. I think we all feed into the same ecosystem, and we help each other by writing entertaining books, and it makes people want to read more books instead of going off and doing something else. So,
And do you ever read any of the Silo Saga Kindle World stories that people put out?
yeah, I have. I mean, my reading list is nuts. It's so hard for me to get through it all. But what I've read has been fantastic. And I've just read some. There's a fan fiction competition going on right now as part of Book Track, and I think there's like $15,000 in cash prizes in this competition.
Wow.
The winner of the fan fiction piece gets like $5,000, plus I do editorial work with them. It's like an incredible. The prizes are nuts. It's better than a lot of literary award prizes. And one of the pieces I've read for that was better than the source material. So that's what I love seeing. I love I love the communal aspects of storytelling that are available now.
Awesome.
All right, let's get into the show. This is the podcast where we talk about the week's science fiction news. Before we start the actual meat of what we're going to talk about here, got to remind you guys real quick, go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/galacticnetcasts, and give as little as $1 a month, and that will help us become a better podcasting network and take over the internet as the leading provider of science fiction content, both written, voice, and video. Galactic Netcast. Patreon.com/Galactic Netcast, and we thank you for your support. All right, let's before we get into the new news, let's read the minutes from last meeting. What did we talk about last time, Brad?
All right. Last time we did not have a guest geek, but we forged ahead. Matt brought the story of the teaser for the new Star Wars Battlefront. Gosh, I loved playing the original Battlefront, and they're bringing it back, and they've gone back to the old places where they, shot the original footage for Hoth back in Norway, and the original redwood forest for Return of the Jedi. So they're going back and they're revisiting this, and they're upping the quality of the game because technology has moved ahead, and they can do it. So I brought the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack story, the soundtrack that Peter Quill in the movie has in his Sony Walkman when he's abducted as a child, is the soundtrack to the actual film, and you will be able to purchase it at the end of July. And the soundtrack itself is almost like a character within the movie, and the soundtrack sort of tells the story of bits of the movie from what it looks like. Dave brought to the table the greatest moments in sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. That was from the SFX magazine from England, and 250 items of great moments in sci-fi history. We covered the top 10.
Yeah, Brad, let's review the number one moment again. The number one moment was a Doctor Who moment.
Yes, it is. It was the last communication between the Doctor and Rose at Bad Wolf Bay.
Yep.
Which,
On the
boy,
alternate universe Earth, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And boy, if you didn't shed a tear when you watched that, you need to see somebody because wow, that was pretty powerful. And our final story that Anessa brought to the table was Sharknado 2, the second one.
And trailer's out.
The trailer's out, and it's full of Sugar Ray goodness and a bit of Ian Ziering, and yep, full of that awesomeness that only Sharknado can bring you.
And I found out that Jared the Subway guy is going to be in Sharknado too. I wonder how long till he gets like eaten by a shark or swept away by a Sharknado.
Subway is actually sponsoring this a bit.
Maybe that's why he's in it.
Yeah.
Well, because I saw it because of an advert on the table at Subway. That's how I found out. So, and he's there with this little plush shark, pretending like he's getting ready to take a bite out of it. So.
It's awesome stuff. Sharknado 2, the second one. Yep, gonna be awesome cinema.
Is that airing this week, Anessa?
July 30th, I think.
Oh, okay.
So a couple weeks from now, but tonight is the riff tracks of Sharknado.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's last week. Let's get into new business. And Matt, you've got the first story.
There was originally a TV show that they were trying to make for Powers. Actually, it might have been a movie. But it turns out that after a bunch of bad stuff, it's coming back. PlayStation has decided to pick it up this time, which is kind of crazy. That's like the majority of the reason I picked this is because of PlayStation picking it up. But what happened was originally they had ordered the scripts, they had a bunch of reshoots scheduled, and all of a sudden everything just went south, and all the actors were released from their contracts, and that was back in 2012. PlayStation picked up for it to be a TV show, and it's going to be an exclusive on the PlayStation Network, which, for those unfamiliar, is like Xbox Live. So when you play online, you go through the PlayStation Network. They believe PlayStation is trying to capitalize on the success that Netflix has had more recently with the original programming of like Orange is the New Black and House of Cards and things of that nature. The first episode will air free of charge. It didn't specify where, but I'm guessing it'll be available on the internet. But the entire 10 episode series will be free for PlayStation Network subscribers, which holds gray area for anyone with a PlayStation since you have to pay to play online with PS4, but online play is free with PS3, so I don't know if you just have an account if it'll be free. But anyways, casting is underway for the new set of actors with no specifics, and it's actually expected to be coming out in December already, which seems really quick, but
yeah,
10 episodes, if they, I have a feeling there probably won't be a ton of hot talent in it. So I've never heard of the comic book. I saw Brad get really excited, but after reading this, I'm kind of looking forward to checking it out.
Brad, do you want to review real quick the plot line of this story?
Powers essentially is a procedural crime comic that deals with a special division of police department that it's called a Powers division, and they investigate homicides, robberies, things like that deal with people with powers, with abilities. So it's pretty much like CSI, but with super-powered people, heroes and villains alike.
Okay. I wanted to jump in real quick with a question for Hugh, and somebody actually has a similar question, so I'll put it up here. What films, TV shows do you watch regularly, or do you have fondness for any? And my question was, are you too busy with the book tours and writing and reading other people's to watch TV and watch movies?
I was a fanatic for TV and film before all this travel started, and now what I do is I watch whatever is on. I do a lot of international flights, so I watch whatever is on the seat back in front of me, which It's actually really nice because it's reminding me that a lot of movies that I'll see the Rotten Tomatoes score and I'm like, okay, I'll never watch that because the critics don't like it. And then I watch the film and I'm like, this is great. Why do I listen to those people? I've also been loading up my laptop with entire seasons of stuff. So I finally caught up with like all of Breaking Bad last year while I was on really long flights, and that's a show that I'll definitely watch again at some point from beginning to end. I just thought it was like absolute mastery when it comes to storytelling. I watched the first season of Game of Thrones and was blown away by that. I'm terrified of watching any more because it's so addictive, and I know I'm going to run out. So I'm doing the same thing I am with the novels, where I'm like, I'm not going to read the second novel until he's done, because I read faster than Martin writes. So those are some things I like. My wife and I, our one show right now that we watch like with dinner every night, whenever there's a new one on our TiVo, is Big Bang Theory. That's our favorite TV show.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Like you can't not miss it. It's like you can find a rerun of Big Bang Theory just about on every channel right now. So you're in luck.
Well, I've already seen them all, so we have to wait for a new one to come out. I also love Modern Family. I think that's the funniest story writers in the business right now. It's a laugh a second on that show.
Would you watch something like Powers if you had the ability to?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a PS4. I think I've only logged a few hours on it because it like arrived while I was out of town, and I'm never at home. But next year is going to be my year for being at home to catch up on my video game playing. So yeah, I'd love to see, and I'd like to see how the PlayStation TV network is gonna work out. The thing I'm worried about with all these different streaming programs, like my wife and I are talking about getting rid of our TV completely to save the money. But then I have like an Amazon Prime account that comes with TV streaming, and I have a Hulu Plus thing, and I have, you lose track of where all these little like $8 or $9 a month things are going, and next thing you know, like you cut off your TV, but you're still paying $100 a month for your PlayStation, network yearly account and everything. It all adds up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Something I thought of when Hugh mentioned streaming is PlayStation actually has PlayStation TV coming out in the States this fall, early winter as well, which I believe the primary use, it's already out in Japan, but its primary use now is to essentially stream your PlayStation to a different TV. So I can put it upstairs and leave my PlayStation downstairs and play soccer while my wife's trying to sleep. Might be my plan.
The PSP does that now, and it works really well. Like I could be in a different room from my PlayStation 4, power up the PlayStation 4, play on the PSP, and power back down.
Yeah, they're apparently, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they're going to be releasing the entire PlayStation back catalog when PlayStation TV comes out, so you can play like the Vita games, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and I'm assuming 3 won't be out since 3 is still old gen, but it's still available.
Yeah. I think it's easy to emulate 2 generations back. It's really hard to emulate the previous generation because the amount of raw horsepower it takes, especially since they changed the architecture between these systems. I'm not sure if the PS4 is powerful enough to emulate the PS3. I think they'd have to port it over.
I think it's a horse apiece, but we could talk about this for days.
I think we learned something about Hugh tonight. He is a video gamer as well. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty cool
On a
stuff.
side note, someone brought up in the questions that today is Nikola Tesla's birthday. So they were like, have you wished him a happy birthday yet? And the answer is no, because we didn't realize it was today. So happy birthday to Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
It's my wife's birthday, if anyone cares. I'm
Oh,
here
happy
with you
birthday to
guys.
Alyssa.
Yeah, I'm here with you
birthday.
guys, and she's in the other room by herself.
Oh, dude.
Aww.
Well, tell her
So
so.
sad.
No,
Yeah.
it's cool. I can't do any worse than last year where I was out of town for work and came home for 10 minutes and then had to go play a soccer game. So,
All right. So you're doing
Oh,
well.
you're doing better this year.
yeah, I was actually here all day.
All right. Let's move on to the second story. Brad, what do you got for us this week?
So, a little while ago, President Obama did sort of a tongue-in-cheek, sort of a joke thing where he said, "Yeah, we're building an Iron Man suit that's completely classified," or maybe it isn't. Just kidding. Turns out it's real. The military has actually now hired an effects company, Legacy Effects, to actually develop an honest-to-God exosuit, an Iron Man type suit, they're calling it. And it's for Project Talos, which stands for the Tactical Assault Light Operator Suit. And it's a kind of a group project, kind of a big deal. They're using a Canadian company, and they're studying how sumo wrestlers fight while carrying so much weight. There's a research group in Florida studying medieval suits of armor. And Exobionics, known for designing exoskeleton that enables paraplegics to walk. I think we've seen some video on some of that.
Yeah, we have.
And Legacy Effects is using 3D printers to create rapid prototypes of these body armor designs. So these different elements are coming together. These people are researching different aspects of what it would take to make the next type of protection for soldiers in the future. Now, some of this is going to also include, I mean, if you're in a exosuit, an exoskeleton-based suit, and you're in the desert, you're going to have an issue with overheating. So they're working on creating a vest that will kind of control climate, you know, something not too unlike a spacesuit. Actually, that would be heated, but you know what I'm saying. There's temperature control for these different elements. The helmet is going to have technology in it, you know, like a heads-up display and things like that. So that's going to have additional weight. So they're going to need something to kind of help the human body, and that's where the exosuit, exoskeleton part comes into play. But extra spinal support, because you're going to be, you know, turning your head and things like that, and that extra weight's going to cause stress and wear and tear on the body. So this is the initial budget for this thing is $80 million. Which doesn't seem like much, but the Pentagon actually had spent $500 million with a different project that was trying to tackle this. It was called the Land Warrior, and they started this in 1996. They didn't finally fix the system's reliability issues until 2006.
Holy crap!
So
I don't understand why put the flesh inside the machine. Like, I just don't. We should be skipping right past these exoskeletons to just to robotics. I mean, it'd be so much easier to look at all the wasted space that could, like, all of our mass could just be battery power or you know, all the limitations. Like, why not have the operator be on the other side of the planet steering this thing?
I thought for a second you were going to say Terminator. I'm like,
well,
how that ended up.
But
sure,
but
this just seems like wasteful. Like, what problem are we trying to solve here? It just doesn't. It seems like this is like a gadget in need of a use.
I think you've got two issues. One, if you have somebody, and I'm obviously not in the military, but I would think that when you're in the moment, in the place, you need to have somebody that's highly trained there with zero lag time. You know what I'm saying? If you're controlling a robotic unit halfway across the planet, there can be no lag time for you to make these decisions in real time to have something happen. You know,
I think we've solved a lot of that lag time. I mean, drones now are becoming more useful than our Air Force, and
True.
It's so much more cost effective. I just can't imagine having the person in there is and I don't think the lag time issues will go away with having the person in there. I guarantee these things are going to be so clunky that the difference in the speed of power and control will be so much slower because it has to protect the bones and the gristle that's inside there. That the lag time is like milliseconds, but the speed of the RAM and the arm and the movement is so much faster against someone else's exoskeleton, and it put me in Indonesia while I'm controlling it while they're sitting here, and I guarantee I'll destroy them.
I think the last piece of that is fear. And when I say fear, I mean, and Dave joked about it briefly at the opening, Terminator. I don't think people are very comfortable yet with trying to, I mean, people are already afraid of drones, and they are operated by a human being, but they're afraid of them. And I don't think that we could quite get a controlled robot to pass political muster. I think that people would be very afraid of that and would be not as open to having someone inside of a protective suit. I think people would be able to get behind that a little bit more. So while I think that the idea of having a remote-controlled robotic unit would be a lot obviously safer for for soldiers to not even be there, to be represented by machinery, but I don't think that people are comfortable with that thought yet.
Yeah, and
at that scale.
Yeah, and I've seen where the drone program has they've kind of taken advantage of it. I believe. I think they've overused it a little bit, and I think having robots controlled from somewhere, somebody in the lap of luxury in a nice office someplace, I think that might give them a little bit more reason. I don't know, reason to go overboard a little bit. I don't know. I could be wrong about it.
I also think
well, the other thing too.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the other thing too is you have a human element to it that's like right there and experiencing everything as it's happening, and so if you see something is going to maybe go wrong, you might be able to do something while you're physically there versus while you're elsewhere, because you don't quite get that impact or that sense of urgency, I guess. The other thing too is if something is going to compromise a suit and say it's going to fall into the wrong hands, then you know it's going to fall into the wrong hands, but at least there you can try to do something to disable the suit or render it void, especially if it somehow gets knocked offline, then you're kind of screwed. So
yeah, if we're building something for the military, we have to assume that some other military is building something to go against us. And if we tell them we're building metal boxes to put people in and we're going to come at you, I think for much less money they could build a superior robot, and they're not going to care about all of our concerns about lag and all that stuff. They're just going to come in and wipe us out. And I don't know. It seems to me just like a really silly tree to even go barking up. There's a much better tree right around the corner. I also think what's really holding back all of technology right now is the inefficiency of battery power. I don't know how these. I've seen the one that you're talking about that they spent $100 million funding, and it was basically just to help a soldier be able to walk into combat with more weight on their back. It was like this thing for their legs and went up their back. It was kludgy and horrible. You could see as soon as you saw the design, you're like, that would never work. I mean, what you have is a mule beside you, like the other robotics company came up. It looks like a headless dog, and let them come into combat holding your extra stuff, and you stay as nimble and able to move around as light as possible. And that was a good solution. But even then, the problem with that robot is the battery power is just not good. I mean, that's holding back everything right now. We just don't have a very lightweight, high-density energy source to power all these fantastic creations. That's why even Iron Man, what was his big breakthrough? The power source. Everything else is
the arc
that we already have.
The arc reactor. Yep. There was a carbon air battery. Boy, I'm trying to find the story now, but they tested a car. There we go. New carbon air battery stores 10 times energy than a lithium-ion battery. So I think that this is a project that took 4 years, and so they've created this carbon air battery, and they actually drove a car with it, and it went for a very, very long time. So I think that we're getting to the point, and carbon, like lithium is a very rare element on Earth. I mean, it's not as abundant as obviously carbon. So if we can work with carbon and the air that we breathe and be able to come up with something that's really powerful, I think that we might finally be able to create low-cost, efficient batteries. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, let's hope that let's hope that that.
Sorry, someone asked a question about the whole drone thing. Was, can a drone sing to Kelly McGillis in a bar, Hugh?
That's a great question, Michael.
That's okay. That's another point for drones and against pilots. Because I would not call what Tom Cruise did in that scene singing.
Oh man, nice.
That's a great question.
I saw that and laughed. I had to share.
All right.
That's Michael Bunker, by the way. So just so you know, that the guy asking that question is Amish and a science fiction writer.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he just had one of his books went to the top 20 on Amazon this last week. So I think he might still be the #1 science fiction author on Amazon. And the dude doesn't have electricity at his house. I have no idea how he's watching this. These guys have black magic, the Amish people.
Like,
they have
that we don't know about when it comes to the Amish, because I hear these stories all the time of Amish people getting involved with society. It's like, have they been evolving or something, or what's going on with the Amish?
Well, because I know Mennonites interact a lot with modern technologies.
Well, I think it's more from what I've seen and what I know. It's if it's a community thing, it's all right.
Yeah, as long as they don't harm themselves.
So, like, if and we go to the Walmart to shop, and there are a number of Mennonite families in the area where we live, and there's a community truck that they use. So, I don't think it's necessarily black magic.
Yeah, I think they have to do a vote. But Michael Bunker was at Worldcon last year, and we're hanging out, and he's got an iPad with him, and I'm like, how does that qualify? And he explained it to me that if it is something that can, like, the community decides, like, is this good for the community or bad for the community? What I love about that is that, and we do that. We're doing that right now as we're discussing, exoskeletons and robots. They have the same conversation about technology that I wish all of society had. Is this going to be a good impact or bad impact? And they make those decisions as a community. And I wish, this podcast does that. I wish this was kind of a global thing, that instead of just like, ooh, shiny, plug it into our lives, we think about it. Kevin Kelly, I think, is one of the great thinkers about this. He helped found Wired magazine. But he's also a guy who's very standoffish about technology. He wants to know, like, is this going to help me or is this going to have a negative impact? And he asks that question very deliberately with every piece of technology he approaches.
So, a question for you related to Michael Bunker. Have you read, like, any of his works, and what would you recommend to someone that would be getting started with his works? And what would Michael recommend?
I'd recommend the Pennsylvania Omnibus. It's a space colonization story. He's also written some fan fiction in my world that's maybe better than the source material, which is really cool. Look, if you Google Amish science fiction, you're only going to get Michael Bunker. He's got the market cornered.
Yeah, he's got the market cornered on that. Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, let's move on with the next story. If that's all you got, Brad. Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Speaking of robotics and mechanical men, $6 Million Man. Who remember that from their childhood? Who was a big...
Me.
Yeah, definitely me too. Yeah. When I was thinking about this today when I was writing the story up. When I was growing up, we either played Star Trek or we played the $6 Million Man, because when you ran, you could make that sound and pretend you were going fast like Steve Austin was.
Oh, yeah. I used to have the Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man action figure.
Oh, yeah, I had one too. Totally. Yeah. So what do you guys think about a reboot? Booting that franchise back up again. You guys in favor of that?
I think inflation's a huge problem here. $6 million isn't going to get you much at all these days.
Might get you a couple of limbs.
Yeah, I mean, you like get a knee replacement and a hip. I mean,
they should go with the original story. It was based on a novel called Cyborg, so maybe they just reboot it using the word because 6 million because they'd almost have to. What's that?
I see what you did.
See what we can get with our money.
All right, so Mark Wahlberg is maybe going to play Steve Austin in the reboot of the movie version of the $6 Million Man. He's pretty hot property right now, being in Transformers: Age of Extinction. That movie doing very, very well at the box office, although people are saying it's terrible. The film may be directed by Peter Berg, whose previous sci-fi outings include Battleship, which didn't do well at the box office, but I thought was a pretty
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah. He also directed Hancock, and he's also involved in that HBO series, The Leftovers. Have any of you guys seen The Leftovers?
No.
No.
Nope. Don't have HBO.
Oh, good.
I saw Hancock, but...
Okay. Well, if you get a chance, check out The Leftovers. So, interesting history behind the whole who owns what as far as the $6 Million Man goes. So in the mid-'90s, Kevin Smith was hired to write a movie screenplay for the original, what was supposed to be the original film version. That went nowhere, as did a proposed comedic take in 2003 that was supposed to star Jim Carrey. Plans for a straight reboot have been lurking around since 2006, but got held up by the rights issues. Universal owns the TV show, while Harvey Weinstein bought the rights to the original book. The rights got sorted out 3 years ago, and the movie almost got off the ground a couple years ago with Bryan Singer directing and Leonardo DiCaprio playing the title role as Steve Austin. So it looks like it's back on track with Mark Wahlberg playing Steve Austin, which I think is a good call. I mean, Steve Austin is not a young guy in the original series. He's probably in his 30s.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I don't like the casting. I'd rather see I don't know, like a taller, more everyday. I don't know. Mark Wahlberg just doesn't seem like the right guy for me. I'd rather see like a Bradley Cooper play that part.
You know, Bradley Cooper could play anything. I mean, he's playing a
just
raccoon for God's sakes.
I don't want to suggest Bradley Cooper looks generic, but you could like tone him down to make him look generic. But I think I don't know. Mark Wahlberg looks too much only like Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, and he sounds too much like Mark Wahlberg.
How about Tom Cruise? Did you see The Edge of Tomorrow? That movie
Yes,
was unbelievable.
That movie was awesome.
And
Unbelievable.
we were talking about the whole Iron Man suit, those exoskeletons. That'd be perfect for something in the military in the future. The way they
robots would be better. Hey, how did we do against the robots though? They were killing us.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Robopocalypse.
But to kind of go back in time, talking about the rights to $6 million franchise, because they made $6 Million Man, and then they made the spin-off, the $6 Million Woman. Now NBC, oh man, what was it, 6-8 years ago, did the basically $6 Million Woman, or the Bionic Woman. At the same time that Chuck was coming out, and
I totally
NBC
forgot about that.
Yeah, NBC put all their eggs in the Bionic Woman basket, and it went a half season, if that, and it fell through. And Michelle Ryan actually starred as the Bionic Woman, and yeah, it just the science was interesting, but the story was just kind of wasn't really up to snuff.
Did any of the actors from the original franchise, the original 2 series, did any of those actors appear in that show?
Checking now.
'Cause I got a feeling that what was his name, Roger?
Okay, it was 2007 is when that came out. It was they named it the Bionic Woman. The Miguel Ferrer actually played her handler, Jonas Bledsoe.
Okay.
She was named Jamie Summers in the show, but I'm not really seeing any original cast people.
Okay. Yeah, they're kind of up there in age, all of them, pretty much.
Well,
Even
Michelle Ryan is younger. She was in her mid-20s when she
Okay.
did this.
Okay.
So
Well, if they can redo RoboCop, I'm sure that they could successfully redo the $6 Million Man as a film franchise. But it'd have to be 3 movies, right? That's the way they do it these days. It's got to be a
yeah, anything is pretty much a franchise, or they want to make it into one with sequels. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so I'm looking forward to that because that would make my 8-year-old Dave light up inside. All right, you guys ready to move on to the next story?
Yes.
All right, Anessa, it's all you. Go ahead.
Well, the BBC is derped again, and they accidentally managed to release 5 unfinished scripts for the next season of Doctor Who. Poor Matt. But the BBC released a statement saying, "We deeply regret this and apologize to all the show's fans, the BBC and cast and crew who have worked tirelessly making the series. We would like to make a plea," they're begging, "to anyone who might have any of this material and spoilers associated with it, not to share it with the wider audience so that everyone can enjoy the show as it should be seen when it launches. We know only too well that Doctor Who fans are the best in the world, and we thank them for their help with this and their continued loyalty."
Didn't this happen before? This happened before.
Well, last year when they released the DVD, they accidentally released the special or something before it even aired on TV.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
So
they pulled it real quick, didn't they?
Well, I mean, it was released on DVDs. It was like people pre-ordered it. They got the season plus this special. And so you couldn't really pull it for people that had already gotten it, but they were like, please, 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 please don't say anything. And for the most part, I don't think a lot of people talked about it. So hopefully people listen again and don't talk about the first 5 episodes of Doctor Who and spoil it for everybody. Because I honestly don't want any spoilers.
I don't think making an announcement like that helps any. I think the people who are fans are the ones who might have that information, and they're the ones who are going to hold it. But announcing that makes people who aren't Doctor Who fans
want to go look at it and talk about it. And then like you get a lot of evil people that just want to spoil it for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
The trolls.
Well, it also gives someone the idea. Like they did this great study in a national park where you had petrified wood everywhere, and there were signs everywhere saying, "Please don't steal the petrified wood." And the petrified wood was missing, like 9 tons a year were missing from the forest. And so some psychologists said, we want to do an experiment. They took the signs down in half the park, and they went and placed petrified wood along the trails equally. And the trails that have signs, all the wood disappeared. The trails without signs, no one thought to take the wood.
That's interesting.
And it's one of those things where, like, especially with little kids, you're like, oh, don't touch that. And the kids are like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Touch.
No.
So, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. So, we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, BBC really needs to get their crap together when it comes to Doctor Who.
Yeah, stop leaking stuff.
Have you guys
Stop burping.
Have you guys seen or heard any of the possible, not from this story, but the possible plot spoilers? Some of the location shootings they've seen.
I haven't kept up with any of it whatsoever. The only thing that I've seen is the little teaser where Peter Capaldi asks Clara if he's a good man, and that's pretty much all I've seen.
I have read all about it, and I just cannot tell you guys how excited I am for the new season of Dr. What's-His-Face, and it just...
Yeah, it's Dr. Doctor what?
Dr. Howe.
Yeah.
Is
Matt
the
doesn't
foreign
watch
cousin
Doctor
to
Who.
Dr. House. Yeah.
Dr.
I
House.
can't
Hugh
stand.
Laurie. Yeah.
I
Dr. House.
understand,
Watching
Hugh,
House.
that Matt isn't the biggest Doctor Who fan in the world. In fact, Matt's not that big of a science fiction fan, so I don't know why we even have him on the show.
Because I'm cute.
Yes, that's why.
That was going to
He's
be
the face.
Yeah, right.
Matt kind of he's the darkness to the show.
Well, he's.
I don't know how to take that.
I don't know. Well, because I mean, like, Matt seems to like sci-fi. He just hasn't really been exposed to a lot of it.
I don't
So-
dislike
He
sci-fi.
doesn't
There's
dislike
just
it.
a lot
so-
of the ultra nerdy sci-fi stuff. I just don't understand the appeal to it.
And haven't
It's totally cool.
haven't we turned you on to a lot of things, Matt? I mean, like things that you never thought you would watch, you've watched, or you're thinking about watching, or
Correct your statement. A lot of things I didn't think I would watch, I was forced to watch to be on podcasts with you guys. I at no point would have ever watched the 20 or 30 giant steaming turd movies you made me watch if it wasn't for the film school podcast.
what? Equilibrium? Come on.
I loved
Yeah, that
Eagle.
was
I
really
love
good.
that movie. There was like 3 movies that were good. But I do enjoy sci-fi. I just enjoy different sci-fi than you guys do, I guess.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has to be in all of Matt's.
Schwarzenegger movies, and I do.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I do play some sci-fi video games, but
So,
Okay.
whatever. I just
Yeah,
I take it with a grain of salt to hang out with you guys, and
Yep.
I drink every time. So by this point in the show, I usually am kind of drunk, so it's cool.
All right. So,
So-
Hugh, did you have a story that you wanted to contribute, or do you want to just take some questions from our audience?
I can do some questions.
okay.
Okay.
Well, there's a
Whatever you
lot of questions.
Whatever you guys say.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, one that I've seen a lot from, or a person
can
that I've seen
answer-
a lot from, is oh man, I really don't like this ranking system because it throws everything out of whack on my end. I'm trying to think. It was 1, how awesome is your dog? That one I
The
remember.
dog is the best.
Oh, he's there. What kind of dog is that?
Bella. Hey, what's up, Bella? What's up?
Oh, look at that dog.
It's so cute.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't bring my dogs on the show because they wouldn't shut up. Look at that dog. Holy crap, man.
So,
She's a good butt.
I had asked a question from Elijah earlier, and he says, hey, going off of my last question about not having enough money to spend on editing, what is your take on going to college for writing or any creative field, and would Kickstarter be an option for somebody in my financial position?
Kickstarter probably won't work unless you have a following or you have enough social media reach that you could probably sell a good number of books anyway. I haven't seen Kickstarter work for a lot of people just starting out. I think,
Potato salad.
yeah. And what was the first part of the question?
Going to
find it.
college. Should he go to
Oh, go
college
to
for
college.
creative writing?
You know, I don't think taking creative writing classes makes you a good writer. I think it makes you a really good editor. I think what makes you a good writer is reading a lot and having as many life adventures as you could possibly pack in.
Yeah.
Most people who have careers as authors don't come from MFA programs. They come from, you know, if it's John Grisham coming from law or James Patterson coming from advertising, or you know, most of my stories come from having sailed all over the world on boats and all the adventures I had there. And so I wouldn't recommend it. I would save my money and go on trips or get a day job that you really enjoy and read as much as you can, adventure as much as you can, and write on the side.
Yeah, and I'm thinking also if they really want to get into maybe the editing aspect as well, community college would be the way to go, honestly. It's a lot more affordable. You don't have to take as much fluff. You don't have to pay for as
Absolutely.
much fluff, and you get what you're going for. So that would be another
Absolutely.
idea. So
I have a question. This comes from Derek Neville. He says, Hugh, I know you didn't do a lot of initial marketing for Wool when it first came out, but what advice do you have for trying to get new work out there and out of obscurity? And this is good advice for anybody creating content on the internet or creating content, period.
I think you have 5 seconds to hook someone. That's the world we live in now. If your first sentence should be so good that someone's going to read the first page of whatever you've written, and once you have that kind of a hook, then you can tweet it, and someone's going to at least want to know, like, okay, what's the next part? Give your work away, have free samples, have entire chapters, entire books online for free. You can't hold anything back when it comes to your plot, and once they get 30% of the way in the story, that's when the good stuff starts happening. That just won't work anymore. And you can't hold anything back when it comes to sharing your ideas and your art. You can't say, well, I value literature, and so my first book that no one's ever heard of me is $9.99, and I'm sticking with that price point. People, when they try to make it as artists, have to get out on the street corner and play for free and put out a hat. And I think that's the way you should approach your writing as well.
Yeah, I've found that to be true when it comes to my career. I recently kind of switched gears from a broadcast radio career to a freelance voiceover and audio production guy, and I've done a lot of jobs that I didn't get paid much for, but it's paid off because I've gotten good reviews on these freelance websites, which has gotten me better jobs with more money. So I know exactly what you're saying, Hugh.
yeah, got to start off small.
Yep.
This kind of also fits in. Someone else asked to make money, because
We lost
Hugh,
we
we lost your
We
audio.
lost your audio.
you lost my audio.
Oh, there we go.
There we
Now
go.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh.
So to make money is that's as far as we got.
Oh, to make money as an indie pubbed author. This is from The Fragrant Liar. To make money as an indie pubbed author, how important is it to churn out a new book every few months? This is another, I think, misconception on having success as a self-published author or as any author, is that you have to write very quickly. I think the people who are having success today are people who have that quality, but it's confusing what's really causing their success. Let's say having 10 works out is what gives you the tipping point where your backlist takes off and you're able to break out. It doesn't matter how quickly you get to that point that you have 10 works out. The self-publishing phenomenon hasn't been going on long enough for us to see the people who write one good novel every 2 years. Well, 20 years from now, that might be when their tipping point hits. Because the key to understanding the beauty of self-publishing is none of these books go old. They don't go out of print. They don't go away. And if they're undiscovered, that means they're brand new. So when I started writing, I gave myself, I was going to write for 10 years. I was going to write 2 novels a year. And at the end of that 10 years, I would see where I was with my writing career. I would have 20 books out and no promotion. I didn't care about whether or not these books were found in any particular time frame. It was just about getting the writing done. So I do think this is kind of not quite true that you have to write quickly. If you write slowly, you just have to be patient. It's still going to be your 8th or 9th or 10th work that's going to help break you out.
All right, cool.
That's good.
Great answer.
So when you listen to, sorry, currently answering where are my socks, Hugh? Where are they? In the dryer. Or on the clothesline. Sorry.
You got another question, Asa?
Yeah, and then it got bumped when that popped up. So, when you listen to the audible version of Wool, did the narrator get it right? Does Amanda Sale's reading sound the same way you hear it or you heard it in your head when you wrote the book?
Yeah, I love Amanda. Amanda did the UK reading for Random House, and I love her reading. I think everything sounds better with a British accent. So, you sound smarter, you sound funnier. Yeah, so it's funny. I don't have really a lot of ownership over the worlds that I create. I think the beauty about writing and reading is that it's this collaborative, imaginative thing where I paint half the picture and you fill in the rest of it. And so when someone comes to me and says, like, how do you pronounce such and such name? I'm like, well, how do you pronounce it? And they tell me the way they pronounce it. I'm like, exactly. And if someone else has the same interaction, they tell me a different way, I'm like, exactly. That's exactly how you pronounce it. Because it's not as important to me, like, how the world looks in my head. It made sense to me when I wrote it that it looks this way, and you're going to make a different sense of it. And I don't want for those two to conflict with one another. So I would say that anyone who interprets my work, whether it's the comic or it's the audio or it's the film, they get it right because it's their version of the story.
Okay. Do we have? I think we should do 2 questions, then wrap it up. 2 more questions?
Let's see. What other questions?
There's somebody here talking or asking about Scrivener, and I know what that is because my wife Stephanie has started to write her first novel, so I know exactly what that is. Do you use Scrivener, or what do you use to write your books?
I write in Apple Pages because I like the interface and I like being able to swipe over in my MacBook Air. I don't recommend it to anybody. It's a horrible program, but that's what I use.
It works for you.
Yeah.
Someone else had, Arena says, first, I'm an avid fan. I've read everything that you've written so far with great enthusiasm. Yet, I have a more specific question. Why the bull versus Colorado, quote, relationship in the sand, i.e., what was the inspiration and the relation to the divers?
So Colorado is their name for the constellation Orion, and of course that name is carried over from the state in which the story takes place thousands of years in the future, so the Colorado is the hunter, is the guy up there in the arrow with the bow and arrow. The bull was just an obvious animal that he would have gone to hunt, but in this case, the bull becomes his friend. So, the warrior was fixed. I was working with that, and the animal I used could have been anything. I just don't think it would have been as good of a story if his best friend was a chicken. I think the bull was a better pal for him. I mean, it kind of goes back to like Paul Bunyan and Blue. There's just that frontier link between the warrior and their masticating quadruped.
All right, I think I've gone through the questions, and I think that pretty much does it. We hit all the big points. So
all the big points. Someone would like to see a Weeping Angel soccer team, but they figure that would be more for the Women's Cup.
Someone
Wah, wah.
Someone was asking what franchise I would reboot. I would love to answer that one. It's really quick. Fraggle Rock.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, we need to bring that back.
Perfect. All right.
There you
All
go.
right. That's going to do it for this episode of the Sci-Fi Geeks Club. And before we wrap up, since we have all these brand new listeners and viewers, we would like to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast by going to galacticnetcasts.com or search for the Sci-Fi Geeks Club on iTunes and Stitcher. We're on both platforms. And before we wrap up, let's run down the summer movie draft between Galactic Netcasts and what we're watching weekly. Matt, do you have the latest? Do you have the update on that?
Yeah, we don't have to talk about this. We're not.
You're not in the lead anymore.
Really?
well, team, what we're watching.
Transformers?
What's that?
Whoever had Transformers is now
Transformers, yeah.
Yeah, what we're watching
What we're
weekly is at
watching
first
weekly is
with
Avenger.
909 million. We are in second with 848 million, and Hondo is. I just want them to get 666 million because
The sign
That's
of
all
the
they can-
beast, mark of the
that's all I
devil.
can really do at this point. But Jesus, 2, 4, 6, 8. Of the 9 remaining movies, we have 2, 4, 5. What we're
Yeah, we
watching
only
with
have
has 2,
2.
and Hondo has 2. So, and plus we have Dawn of the Planet of the Apes that comes out this Friday, and Planes
Yeah.
next Friday. So,
Yeah, we got a
I'm
couple.
just happy that it's not like consistently y'all. There's someone else at the top now.
no, and you know what? It makes it a little more interesting. As much as it is awesome to just be in first the whole time, like it gets kind of boring on top. You know.
Yeah. So.
No, it doesn't.
Shut up, Hugh. I want them to feel like they belong.
No, I was thinking of something else. Never mind.
All right. So if you want to let us know what you thought about this episode or ask questions about this or anything else we've talked about on this show, leave us feedback by calling our voicemail number anytime, 805-328-3966, 805-328-3966, or email us galacticnetcasts@gmail.com. Hugh, before we get out of here, what should people know about if they've never read any of your stories? Where should they start?
Somewhere else. I would. If someone asks me to recommend books, I always recommend someone else's book. The best thing I've read lately is probably The Martian by Andy Weir.
Yes.
We're all reading that. Except for Matt.
Yeah, me, Matt, or me, Brad, and Anessa are reading that right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't read books. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. But if you do, that is the book to read. It's actually
Also,
really good.
If you want to be a hipster, pick up John Green's Paper Towns instead of The Fault in Our Stars is awesome. Everyone's reading it, but check out Paper Towns. It's a brilliant book. It's young adult, but it's better than. It's not confined to that. So check that out as well.
All right, cool. Hugh, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm everywhere. I'm behind you.
He is the internet's.
Oh, I didn't
No,
know that.
it's just Hugh Howey, either HughHowey.com or Hugh Howey Twitter, Hugh Howey Gmail, Hugh Howey Hotmail. There's another Hugh Howey in Australia, and I'm beating him to everything.
Yes.
He is frustrated.
I met him in Australia, and the dude is massive, and I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. If you want the Hotmail account, you can have the Hotmail account.
Don't kick my ass, and we'll be fine. All right, thanks again to our guest, Hugh Howey, for joining us. You had a question, Brad?
Yeah, did we have feedback from Jason for...
Yeah. Jason is a regular caller, a regular listener to our Alien Invasion podcast. He also listens to this show, and I think his voicemail pertains to a lot of what we talk about on this show, so let's play it real quick. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. It's Jason from Kansas. Just calling up to say I hope everybody had a good holiday weekend. And just to report a couple of things real quick. First off, a couple of weekends ago, my wife and I went to Hutchinson, Kansas to the Smallville Con, and it was kind of cool. It wasn't a real big con. It was pretty neat, though. They had a lot of, I counted 50, upwards of 50 over that, people in Superman garb. It was pretty neat. There was a couple of homemade Daleks. It was pretty cool. We didn't bring the camera, though, because we didn't know how it was going to be. So anyways, another thing real quick, I went and watched the new Transformers with my wife this 4th of July weekend, and have to say I'm a little disappointed, actually a lot disappointed. Michael Bay peed on my childhood. I want to know. It was 3 hours of Mark Wahlberg going, hey, I think we found a Transformer. What can you do? There was a couple of good parts, but other than that, it was a big Chevrolet commercial to me. Also, Dave, right now, I just walked out of my living room and Star Trek The Next Generation was on, and it's, I think, your favorite episode. It's the one where it's Shaka when the walls fell, or that one, where Picard and that one dude are on the planet and got a fight or whatever. Anyways, just thought I'd throw that in there. Hope everybody's doing good. Keep up the good work, and I will talk to you all later. See ya.
Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, When the Walls Fell. Yes, it's a great episode.
Yep, and it's a pretty good episode. Although there's a certain point where you're like, because he keeps saying it over and over because he's trying to communicate with Picard, but sorry, flashbacks.
Great, no, but a great science fiction concept.
No,
nonetheless.
absolutely.
Jason called our voicemail number, and I'll give that to you again: 805-328-3966. Follow us
And
on
you can also text to that number too.
Yeah, exactly. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. And one more time, thanks to Hugh Howey for joining us on this episode of the Sci-Fi Geeks Club. Thanks, Hugh.
Thanks for having me.
Hugh.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I call this episode of the Sci-Fi Geeks Club adjourned. Hang on. Here we go. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye, Dad.